My name is Daisy Ross. I'm 28 years old, and I work as a technology engineer for a major tech corporation based in San Jose. It's the kind of job that looks clean and impressive on paper, but in real life, it's long hours, constant pressure, and the kind of mental exhaustion that follows you home like a shadow. Still, I've built a stable life, and the best part of that life, honestly, is my dad. Simon Ross, Lieutenant Colonel, United States Marine Corps, retired in August 2023 after 35 years of service. People hear Marine and picture a man made of stone, a man who barks orders and turns kindness into weakness. But my dad wasn't like that at home, not fully. He was strict about principles, truth, responsibility, respect, but he was also the kind of man who could make you laugh so hard your stomach hurt, even while you were washing dishes. The kind of man who could tell war stories with the weight of the world behind his eyes. Then follow it up with some ridiculous joke like he was trying to remind himself he was still human. Because most of my childhood, he wasn't there. Not because he didn't want to be, because the Marine Corps didn't care about birthdays, school plays, or Christmas mornings. His life was training bases and overseas deployments. During holidays, he was usually just a face on a phone screen for 5 minutes before the connection cut out. So when he called me 4 days before Christmas and said, his voice almost excited, "Daisy, I'm hosting a Christmas dinner this year. Relatives, neighbors, old friends, everyone. I want you here." I said yes without even thinking, because this was the first year my dad would be home, really home, not on a screen, not calling from some place I couldn't pronounce. I wanted that night to matter. I wanted it to feel like a beginning. And maybe that was my first mistake, believing my family knew how to begin again. At around 5:00 p.m., I drove to my parents' house in my brand new Ford Mustang GT. Red, sleek, a beast. I'd bought it 2 months earlier after saving and grinding and saying no to everything fun for half a year. It wasn't just a car to me. It was proof. Proof that even though I grew up in a house where love was measured in who got spoiled, I could still build something on my own. As I turned onto the street, I saw cars lined up everywhere, filling both sides of the driveway, crowding the curb like a parade. Then I spotted it. Sophia's white Honda Civic, 2018. My father bought it for her when she started college. A shiny, expensive gift that came with 0 strings attached. The kind of gift you give someone when you want to say you're the favorite without ever admitting it out loud. I parked, took a breath, and grabbed the gifts I'd spent all day choosing like my life depended on it. A bottle of fine whiskey for Dad, a soft cashmere scarf for Mom, and Chanel perfume for Sophia. Yeah, even Sophia, because that's what I always did. I tried so hard it became a personality flaw. The moment I walked in, my dad came in from the backyard grill like he'd been waiting at the door for hours. His face lit up in a way I hadn't seen since I was a kid. He looked at the whiskey and said, smiling warmly, "Well done, Daisy. You remembered my favorite. Thank you." And something inside me loosened. Just a little. But when my mother and Sophia received their gifts, their expressions didn't soften. They smiled. The way you smile when you don't want to look rude in front of guests. The kind of thank you that means you did what you were supposed to do. Not gratitude, obligation. I swallowed the sting and hung my coat on the rack by the door. And I forgot one crucial detail. The key to my Mustang was still in my coat pocket. That tiny mistake would become the match. By 6 o'clock, the house was buzzing. Laughter, clinking glasses, Christmas music floating through the air like a promise. People noticed my car almost immediately. Uncle Austin, our longtime neighbor and family friend, asked how much it cost. Uncle Adam complimented it, saying it looked powerful. My cousin Thomas, only 20, stared at me like I was a celebrity. "Daisy, you're killing it. I swear I'm going to work hard and get one like yours someday." I laughed, embarrassed. But my dad didn't hide his pride. He said it out loud, right there in front of everyone. "I'm very proud of Daisy. She built her career from the ground up." Then he looked at me with that smile, quiet, steady, unmistakably real. And in that moment, I felt something I didn't realize I'd been craving my whole life. Recognition. Not as the responsible one. Not as the one who should understand. But as the one who worked, who earned, who mattered. The mood was so warm, I joked back. Funny, because 8 years ago, someone tried to force me to join the Marines. Dad played along like a comedian. Who? Who forced you? That couldn't have been me. I was offering helpful advice. Everyone laughed. The room glowed. For a second, I forgot what it felt like to brace myself around my own family. I need you to understand something about my father. He was disciplined, yes. Meticulous, yes. But he wasn't cruel. At home, he didn't rule us like soldiers. He didn't yell unless you pushed him into a corner. Once, when I was younger, I asked him, "Why don't you raise us the way you command your troops?" He smiled, patted my head, and said, "If you listen and you know what's right, I'll be your friend. But if you mess up and don't own it, you'll get a real boot camp experience." Back then, I laughed. That night, I remembered those words like a warning. Because while the room was still full of laughter, Sophia leaned back in her chair, swirling her drink like she was bored, and said casually, "Hey, Daisy, can I borrow your car for a few days?" It was so random, so confident, like she was asking to borrow a sweater. I blinked. "What about your car? Why do you need mine?" She didn't even hesitate. "I just want to use it, show it off to a few friends." Something about the way she said it, like my Mustang was an accessory, made my stomach tighten. Sophia was 24, not a teenager, not a kid, a full-grown adult, still acting like the world was supposed to entertain her. I tried to be calm. I tried to be reasonable. "I can't let you borrow it," I said carefully. "The Mustang is tough to handle. It's made for experienced drivers with a stable mindset." Her eyes narrowed immediately. "So you're saying I'm impulsive?" "No," I said, forcing patience into my voice. "That's not what I'm saying. But I've ridden with you. You pass cars without checking. You drive too fast." She raised her hand and cut me off like I was a stranger who'd spoken out of turn. "Stop. That's enough. You're so selfish. If you don't want to let me use it, just say so. Don't make up excuses." Something inside me went cold. Because there it was. That familiar feeling. No matter how gently I spoke, no matter how logical I was, Sophia always heard attack. And Mom always heard Sophia is the victim. So I stopped sugarcoating. "Fine," I said, my voice sharper now. "I can't let you borrow it. If you want a car like that, earn money and save up like I did." Sophia's face flushed like I'd slapped her. She stood up so fast her chair scraped the floor. And without a word, she stormed off. Her footsteps were quick and hard, like she wanted the whole house to hear her anger. I watched her go, and I told myself, "Let it go, Daisy. It's Christmas." I truly believed that was the end of it, that my refusal was reasonable, that Sophia would sulk, get over it, and come back for dessert. I didn't know my sister was the type of person who couldn't stand being told no. And I didn't realize, not yet, that my coat, hanging quietly by the front door, was basically an open invitation to disaster. By 6:30, dinner was served. The table filled with food, laughter returned, glasses clinked. Dad was animated, telling childhood stories, making everyone crack up. I was smiling, relaxed, thinking, this is the happiest Christmas I've ever had. And while we were all distracted, Sophia slipped away. She walked to the coat rack, reached into my pocket, closed her fingers around my Mustang keys, and stole my car. I didn't hear the engine start. I didn't hear the tires roll away. Inside the house, the Christmas music played, and everyone laughed like nothing was wrong. Then, at around 8 o'clock p.m., a sound like the world breaking open exploded outside. A crash so loud the whole house shook. Laughter died instantly. Chairs scraped. Someone shouted. And before I even reached the door, I heard Uncle Austin's voice. Pure horror. "Oh my God, that's Daisy's car!" My heart stopped, and I ran. The air outside hit my face like ice. Not cold the way winter is cold. This was sharper, meaner, like the night itself was warning me to turn back. But I couldn't, because the moment I stepped onto the porch and saw the front gate, my brain refused to accept what my eyes were showing it. My Mustang, my red, flawless Mustang, was crumpled like a soda can. The front end was smashed inward, metal folded on itself. Headlights shattered into glittering fragments across the driveway. Thick smoke rolled from the engine like a slow, ugly confession. The airbags had exploded, leaving white dust hanging in the air. For half a second, I didn't move. I didn't breathe. All I could think was, this isn't real. This is some nightmare where you wake up sweating and laughing at yourself for being dramatic. Then I saw someone in the driver's seat, a figure slumped forward, framed by the white haze of the airbags. People were already rushing toward the car. Uncle Austin, Cousin Thomas, even strangers from the party spilling out onto the lawn like a wave. My legs finally remembered how to work. I ran, and when I got close enough to see through the cracked windshield, my stomach turned to water. Sophia. Sophia was sitting behind the wheel. Her hair was tangled, cheeks flushed from the impact, mascara smudged like a careless fingerprint across her face. She blinked slowly, as if she'd just woken from a nap. Then she pushed the door open and stepped out. No apology. No panic. No, "Oh my God, I'm sorry." She looked at me like I was the one who had inconvenienced her. And in a calm, almost bored voice, she said, "You were right. Your car is hard to handle." I stared at her. at the way she stood there, upright and unshaken, while my stomach was collapsing. I looked back at the Mustang. 6 months of sacrifice. 2 months of joy. Gone. Something inside my chest snapped so cleanly it felt like silence. "What the hell did you do?" I screamed. "Sophia, what the hell did you do to my car?" She didn't flinch. She didn't even look ashamed. Instead, she tilted her head like she was analyzing a product review. "It's the car's fault," she said coldly. "Like you said, it's hard to control." I felt heat rush up my neck so fast I could taste it. "What did you just say?" Sophia's eyes flicked over me without emotion. "You should feel lucky I didn't get hurt," she added. "Otherwise, you'd be the one paying for my injuries." That sentence did something to me. It wasn't just anger anymore, it was disbelief so intense it hurt. Because she wasn't just refusing responsibility. She was rewriting reality, right in front of everyone, so that I would become the villain. I took a step toward her, shaking. "You stole my car," I hissed. "When you asked to borrow it, I said no. I said no, Sophia." A crowd had formed behind us. Faces pale, mouths open, someone whispering my name like they were watching a tragedy on TV. And then, a voice cut through the chaos like a gunshot. "That's enough. One sentence. No yelling, no emotion, just absolute command." Everyone froze. My father stepped forward. "Simon Ross." And the expression on his face wasn't the warm father from dinner. It wasn't the man who joked and laughed and praised me in front of guests. This was Lieutenant Colonel Simon Ross. His eyes were cold. Not cruel, cold, like steel before it's forged. He looked at me, then at Sophia. Then he spoke again, sharper. "Everyone inside, now." It didn't matter that we were adults. It didn't matter that this was a family party. When my dad used that voice, you obeyed. Instinctively. Like your body remembered what your pride wanted to deny. The guests followed us in silence, like a line of nervous recruits. Inside, the living room was suddenly too small, too warm. The Christmas lights blinking along the window felt wrong. Cheerful decorations in a room full of tension that could choke you. Everyone sat. Everyone. Except 3 people. Me, Sophia, and my father. We stood in the center of the room like a courtroom had been built around us. My dad didn't pace. He didn't rage. He didn't perform. He simply turned to me and asked, voice controlled, "Daisy, did you agree to let Sophia borrow your car?" My throat was tight, but I forced the words out. "No, I refused. She asked at dinner. She said she wanted to show it off. I told her it was a powerful car and I didn't trust her driving. She got angry and stormed off." Sophia's eyes burned into me, but I didn't look away. My dad nodded once, absorbing it like evidence. Then he turned to Sophia. "If Daisy said no," he asked calmly, "why did you take the keys and drive the car?" Sophia lifted her chin. And for a second I thought, maybe she'll be embarrassed. Maybe she'll finally break. Instead, she looked straight at my father and said, "Daisy is lying." The room made a sound, like 20 people inhaling at once. I went numb. Sophia continued smoothly, like she'd rehearsed it in her head. "She told me the keys were in her coat pocket," Sophia said. "She said I could take it. I didn't steal anything." My mouth opened, but nothing came out. Because I couldn't understand it. How someone could lie that easily. How my sister could look at our father, and say something so false without even blinking. Then my mother's voice cut in immediately, like it always did. "I knew it," Mary said, pointing at me, like I was on trial. "You've always been selfish, Daisy. We're lucky Sophia wasn't hurt." My head snapped toward her. My hands were shaking. "What are you talking about?" I cried. "You can't just take her word and blame me like that." But my mother didn't even hesitate. She looked at my father, bitter and accusatory. "You spent all those years serving the country," she said. "And now look at what kind of daughter you raised." That was the moment I saw something shift in my dad's face. Not anger. Disappointment. The kind that lands heavier than any shout. He turned to my mother slowly. And when he spoke, his voice was so calm it scared me. "I served this country and earned a high income doing so," he said. "I gave you every cent of my military pay. You never had to work. I asked one thing, that you raise our children." His eyes didn't leave her face. "So if Daisy turned out rotten like you claim," he continued, "the first person responsible is you." My mother went silent. For once in my life, she had nothing ready to fire back. And I just stood there, chest tight, realizing something I didn't want to admit. My dad had been gone so much, but he had been watching. He had noticed more than we thought. He turned back to us, me and Sophia. "One of you is lying," he said. "Be honest right now, and I'll forgive it. But if you stay stubborn and I discover the truth myself, the consequences will be severe." The word severe hung in the air like a threat made of iron. Sophia swallowed. I saw it, a tiny crack. But she covered it fast, lifting her chin again. "Daisy is lying," she said firmly. "I don't need to say anything else." My pulse roared in my ears. I couldn't stand it anymore. The injustice, the lie, my mother's automatic betrayal. "I want to call the police," I said, voice shaking. "Let them investigate." The room stiffened. Even the guests looked uncomfortable now, like the word police had shattered the last illusion that this was just a family argument. My dad paused. Then he nodded. "All right," he said. "I'll allow it. Go ahead." Sophia's face changed instantly. It was subtle, but it was there. Fear, quick and sharp, flashing behind her eyes. "Why call the police?" she blurted. "This is a family matter. It'll be embarrassing if outsiders hear about it." And the moment she said that, my dad's gaze sharpened, like a trap snapping shut. He looked at Sophia for a long second, then said quietly, "No need to call them." Sophia's eyes widened slightly. My mother sat up, confused. Then my dad spoke, voice flat and final. "Sophia, you're the one who lied." My mother's mouth opened immediately. "Simon, you can't accuse her without proof." My dad's head turned toward her so fast she stopped mid-sentence. "I'm disciplining my child," he said, voice hard. "Stay out of it." And my mother actually lowered her eyes, because even she could feel it. This wasn't an argument anymore. This was command. My dad turned back to Sophia. "Only criminals are afraid of the police," he said. "If you don't tell the truth right now, I'll call them myself." For the first time, Sophia didn't look defiant. She looked cornered, her lips parted. Then she exhaled sharply, like she'd decided she'd rather confess than lose control of the narrative completely. "Yes," she said, voice sharp with anger more than shame. "I took Daisy's car without permission." The room erupted into whispers, shocked glances, hands over mouths, people shifting uncomfortably on the couch. I felt a strange relief wash through me. Not happiness, just relief that I wasn't crazy. Relief that the lie didn't win. I thought that was it. I thought Sophia would finally apologize. I thought she would take responsibility for the damage. I thought my mother, for once, would be forced to see the truth. But I didn't understand Sophia yet, and I didn't understand how far my mother would go to protect her. Because my father's next words, simple, fair, reasonable, were the match that lit the real fire. He looked at Sophia and said, "You will apologize to Daisy, and tomorrow morning you will get her car repaired." Sophia went still. Her eyes narrowed. And the resentment on her face wasn't just anger at being caught. It was anger at being asked to pay, to be accountable, to finally face consequences. And as I watched her expression harden, something cold slid down my spine. Because I realized this wasn't going to end with an apology. This was about to become war. For a few seconds, no one said anything. The room was quiet in that unnatural way where every breath feels too loud, every blink too slow. My father stood there, waiting. Not demanding, not threatening, just waiting. Sophia stared at him like he'd asked her to cut off her own arm. Then she laughed. It wasn't a nervous laugh. It was sharp, bitter, disbelieving. "That's unreasonable," she snapped. My dad didn't raise his voice. He didn't even frown. "And why do you think it's unreasonable?" he asked. Sophia's eyes flicked sideways, instantly searching for her safety net. "My mother." Mary didn't disappoint. She leaned forward, voice soft and indulgent, the same tone she'd used my entire life whenever Sophia crossed a line. "Simon, don't be so hard on her," she said. "She's just a girl. Daisy makes good money. There's no need to make Sophia pay for the repairs." That sentence landed like a slap. "She's just a girl." As if I wasn't one. As if responsibility had a gender. I felt something crack inside my chest. Not loudly, but deeply. My father didn't look at me. He didn't look at Sophia. He turned to my mother, slowly. "So all these years," he said evenly, "you've been teaching Sophia to live without responsibility, haven't you?" My mother froze. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Silence answered for her. My dad nodded once, like a man confirming a theory he'd already proven. Then he turned back to Sophia. "Last time," he said, "will you apologize to Daisy and take responsibility for repairing her car?" Sophia lifted her chin defiantly. "I'm not doing what you say," she shouted. "We're family. Why are you being so petty over a stupid car?" That was it. I saw it in my father's eyes. The warmth disappeared. The patience evaporated. The man standing in front of us wasn't my dad anymore. It was the Marine. He didn't argue. He didn't threaten. He simply turned around and walked out of the living room, toward the backyard, toward the storage shed. For a moment, I actually thought, maybe he's done. Maybe this is where he gives up, because that's what everyone else in my family always did. Gave up. Excused. Enabled. The room erupted into nervous chatter as soon as he was out of sight. Relatives leaned in, whispering, trying to soften the edges of the moment. "It's Christmas," someone murmured. "Let it go." "She's family," another said. "Don't blow it up." Uncle Austin was firmly on my side. She took the car. She crashed it. She should pay. Thomas nodded beside him, face pale. Actions have consequences. The room split cleanly in two, just like it always had. I sat down heavily on the couch, suddenly exhausted. Not just tired, but hollow, like something essential had been drained out of me. Then, bang! The back door slammed open. Every conversation died instantly. My father walked back into the room holding a solid oak baseball bat in one hand. Casual, deliberate. The room froze. My heart began to race so hard it felt like it was clawing its way out of my chest. Is he going to hit her? That terrifying thought flashed through my mind, and I hated myself for even imagining it. Despite everything Sophia had done, she was still my sister. I stood up without realizing it, my hands trembling. But my father didn't even glance at her. He walked straight past us toward the front door. Then he stopped, turned, and said flat and emotionless, "Follow me." No one argued. No one questioned him. We moved like soldiers responding to a direct order. Outside, the night air felt heavier. The Christmas lights strung along the fence blinked cheerfully, mocking the tension tightening around our throats. My dad stopped in front of the white Honda Civic. Sophia's car, the one he bought her. Before anyone could speak, he raised the bat and smashed it straight into the windshield. Crack! The sound was deafening. Glass exploded outward, spraying across the driveway like frozen rain. Time stopped. I couldn't breathe. My heart slammed against my ribs as if it wanted to escape my body entirely. Again. Crash. The side window shattered. Again. Crash. Each strike echoed like a gunshot, ricocheting off the houses nearby. People flinched with every blow. Someone gasped. Someone covered their face. I saw Uncle Austin standing there, mouth open, eyes wide, unable to process what he was witnessing. Thomas lowered his head, pale and shaking. Then my mother and Sophia came running out of the house. My mother screamed, grabbing my dad's arm. "Simon, stop this!" Sophia stepped forward, her voice finally trembling. "Why are you doing this?" My father didn't look at either of them. "This car," he said coldly, "was my gift to you." He yanked his arm free from my mother's grip. "That means I have every right to destroy it." And he kept going. Headlights, mirrors, doors. Metal bent and screamed under the force of every swing. Sophia collapsed against my mother, sobbing uncontrollably now, the reality finally sinking in. My mother clutched her, screaming and crying, while the bat kept rising and falling. The sound of oak hitting steel mixed with their cries, creating a nightmare soundtrack I will never forget. I stood frozen, not because I was afraid he would hurt me, but because I had never seen my father lose control like this. And yet, deep down, I understood. This wasn't just rage. This was years of frustration. Years of watching one child grow entitled while the other learned to shrink. Years of absence. Years of silence. After nearly 10 minutes, my father dropped the bat. It hit the ground with a dull thud beside what was now a destroyed car. He looked at my mother and sister, eyes sharp and empty. "This," he said calmly, "is the lesson for anyone who always thinks they're right." Then he turned around and walked back into the house. Just like that, leaving us standing in the driveway, shattered glass under our feet, shattered illusions in our chests. 10 minutes later, we were all back inside. No one spoke. No one even dared to cough. My father sat upright on the leather sofa, hands resting calmly on his knees, like nothing had happened. The room felt smaller than ever. He stood, walked over to me, and reached into his pocket. Then he handed me a thick stack of cash. $10,000, he said. "Take it and get your car fixed." I shook my head immediately. "Dad, I can handle it." He locked eyes with me. "That's an order," he said. I swallowed and took the money. It felt heavier than it should have, not because of the weight, but because it carried everything that had happened, the crash, the lie, the truth, the lesson. Then my mother found her voice again. "And what about Sophia's car?" she demanded. "You need to buy her a new one." Something in my father finally snapped, not loudly, but permanently. He stood up and looked at both of them. "Tomorrow," he said, "I will contact my old unit." My mother's face tightened. "If you and Sophia want to continue living in this house," he continued, "you will both complete a 1-month military training program." The color drained from their faces. They knew exactly what that meant. 500 a.m. wake-ups, miles of running, brutal discipline. No excuses. Sophia screamed, "I'm never doing that damn training." My mother stood up too, shaking with rage. "You're biased toward Daisy," she yelled. "This is a family. You can't keep showing favoritism." My father's voice was calm now. Cold. "Daisy bought her car with her own money," he said. "Money she earned." He pointed toward the wreckage outside. "Our daughter destroyed it." Then he looked straight at my mother. "Sophia's car was a gift. paid for with my money. If anyone here has been mistreated, it's Daisy." Those words hit me like a wave, for the first time in my life. I felt seen, truly seen. My mother fell silent. My father straightened. "If you refuse the training," he said, voice final, "we are no longer a family." Sophia didn't hesitate. She stood up, face flushed red with fury. "Fine," she shouted. "No one wants to be part of your family anyway." And with that, she walked out. The door slammed behind her. My mother stared after her for a second, then turned on my father. "Are you happy now?" she screamed. "You destroyed this family." My father didn't answer. He just stood there, shoulders heavy, eyes following the space where Sophia had disappeared. Then my mother grabbed her coat. "I'm going with her," she said bitterly, "and I'm divorcing you." She turned to me. Her eyes were full of resentment. "Are you happy now, Daisy?" she spat. "It was just a car. You blew this out of proportion." I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just felt empty. As I watched them climb into a taxi and drive away, I realized something painful and final. That night didn't just end a party. It ended our family. The house didn't feel like a house anymore after that night. It felt like a museum of everything that used to be true. Half-full wine glasses still sat on the table. Cold food congealed on plates. No one had the appetite to touch. Unopened Christmas presents waited under the tree like they were mocking us. Bright paper wrapped around a celebration that no longer existed. The guests left quietly. No laughter, no awkward jokes. Just hushed goodbyes and sympathetic touches. Cousin Thomas squeezed my hand before he left. "You were right," he whispered, like saying it any louder might break something. Uncle Austin placed a steady hand on my father's shoulder. "You did what a father had to do," he said softly. When the door finally closed and the house fell into complete silence, my dad sank onto the sofa. He didn't cry. He didn't speak. He just stared ahead, like he was watching something no one else could see. And for the first time in my life, I realized something that made my chest ache. Strength doesn't protect you from pain. It just teaches you how to carry it. In the days that followed, I started coming home after work every evening. Not because he asked me to, because I couldn't stand the idea of him eating dinner alone in that hollow house. We didn't talk much at first. We cooked quietly, watched the news, sat side by side, two people sharing space without knowing how to name the grief between them. One night I finally suggested it. "Dad, why don't you come live with me?" He shook his head immediately. "Not yet," he said. "I'll stay here until the divorce and property division are finalized. After that, we'll see." I didn't push. I could tell he needed time to process the legal mess, and time to mourn the life he thought he had built. Over those dinners, my dad began to talk more. Not about Mom, not about Sophia, but about the Marines, about leadership, about decisions he'd made overseas that cost lives, and decisions that saved them. He told me something that stuck with me forever. "A leader's job isn't to be liked," he said quietly. "It's to do what's right, even when everyone hates you for it." 2 months later, the court approved the divorce. The day of the hearing felt colder than any winter morning. Sophia and my mother sat on the opposite side of the courtroom, their bodies angled away from us like strangers, or enemies. They didn't look at my dad. They didn't look at me without resentment. When the judge read the ruling, the sound of the gavel echoed through the room like a final nail being driven into something already dead. 28 years of marriage. Gone. Assets divided. House, vehicles, accounts split cleanly and legally, like numbers on a spreadsheet. My mother and Sophia stood up immediately after. They walked out without a glance back. Not one. My father stayed seated. I watched his jaw tighten as the two people he once loved disappeared through the courtroom doors. He didn't chase them. He didn't call out. He simply sat there, dignified, broken, and silent. That was the moment I knew there was no going back. 2 years passed. Eventually, my father moved in with me at my 3-bedroom house in the suburbs of San Jose. Life became quiet. Not empty. Peaceful. We cooked dinner together every night, watched the news, talked about work. He spent hours tending to plants in the backyard, like nurturing something living helped him heal. There were no arguments, no favoritism, just mutual respect. Meanwhile, through relatives and old friends, I heard about my mother and Sophia. They still lived together, and nothing had changed. If anything, it had gotten worse. Sophia stayed out late, burned through money recklessly, and treated my mother with the same entitlement she'd always been protected for. And I couldn't shake the feeling that the story wasn't over, that consequences don't disappear. They wait. 2 days ago, on what started as a normal weekend afternoon, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, my heart sank. My mother stood there. She looked nothing like the woman who had walked out on Christmas night. Her hair was disheveled. Her eyes were red and swollen. Her hands trembled as if her body had forgotten how to stay still. We let her in. She sat on the sofa and immediately broke down, sobbing. "I need help," she cried. "Please, I need $200,000. My father didn't react. He simply asked calmly, "What happened?" My mother wiped her face and began to speak through tears. 2 weeks earlier, Sophia had gone to an upscale bar with friends. At some point during the night, she noticed a Lamborghini, worth over $300,000, parked nearby. When the owner wasn't looking, Sophia took the keys from a table. Just like before, she got behind the wheel. Just like before, she wanted photos. She wanted attention. She wanted to feel important. And then she crashed. The Lamborghini slammed into a highway barrier and was totaled beyond repair. Sophia walked away without serious injuries, thanks to the car's safety systems. But the police investigation revealed everything. The stolen keys, the unauthorized drive, the recklessness. The lawsuit was devastating. When my mother finished, my father looked at her and said quietly, "If 2 years ago you had held her accountable for stealing Daisy's car, this wouldn't be happening." My mother collapsed. "I know I was wrong," she sobbed. "Please help her. She's still young. She can change." My father stood up. He didn't shout. He didn't argue. He simply walked out of the room. He had nothing left to say. My mother turned to me then. Her eyes were desperate. I looked at her and asked the question that had lived in my chest my entire life. "Have you ever worried about me the way you're worrying about Sophia right now?" She froze, speechless. After a long silence, she stood up and walked out without another word. That night, over 2 cups of coffee, I finally asked my dad, "Are you really not going to help her?" He stared into his cup for a long moment. Then he looked at me. "People will call me cruel," he said quietly. "Heartless. Selfish." He paused. "You and Sophia are both adults now," he continued. "Adults must take responsibility for their actions." He stood up, placed a hand on my shoulder, and walked to his room. I sat there alone, letting his words settle. This wasn't just a lesson for Sophia. It was a lesson for me too. About responsibility, about integrity, and about a kind of love that doesn't look gentle, but is deeper than anything else. After my father walked away that night, the house fell into a familiar silence. Not the comfortable kind, the heavy kind. The kind that presses down on your chest and forces you to sit with thoughts you've spent your whole life avoiding. I stayed on the sofa long after the coffee had gone cold. My mother's face kept replaying in my mind. Her desperation, her fear, her regret. And beneath it all, the realization that hurt more than anything else. She hadn't come back because she missed us. She came back because she needed money. $200,000. Not an apology. Not reconciliation. A bailout. That truth settled slowly, like sediment sinking to the bottom of still water. For the first time, I allowed myself to see the full picture, not as a daughter desperate for approval, but as an adult who had lived long enough to recognize patterns. Sophia hadn't changed. She had escalated. The Mustang wasn't a mistake. It was a rehearsal. The Honda Civic wasn't cruelty. It was a warning. And the Lamborghini? That was the inevitable ending of a story that had been rewritten, excused, and protected too many times. I went to bed that night but barely slept. The next morning, my dad was already in the kitchen, trimming herbs by the window, like nothing in the world had happened. He looked calm, resolved, but older. I wanted to say something comforting. "You did the right thing," or "she'll understand one day," but the words felt empty. So instead, I asked the question that had been echoing in my head since my mother left. "Dad, when Mom tells people this story," I said carefully, "they're going to say you're heartless." He didn't stop what he was doing. "I know," he said. "They'll say you abandoned your daughter." He nodded once. "They already do." That was when I understood something I hadn't before. My father had already accepted being misunderstood. He had already paid that price. He turned to me then, wiping his hands on a towel. "You know," he said quietly, "when I was in command, sometimes I had to send men into situations they didn't want to face. Some of them hated me for it." He met my eyes. "But they lived because of it." I swallowed hard. "And some didn't?" I asked. His gaze dropped for a moment. "And some didn't," he repeated. Then he straightened. "But avoiding responsibility doesn't save anyone. It just delays the damage." We didn't talk about Sophia again after that. We didn't need to. A few days later, I heard through relatives that the lawsuit was moving forward. No miracle money appeared. No last-minute rescue. Sophia would have to face the consequences on her own. And for the first time in her life, no one was stepping in to soften the fall. That night, as I lay in bed, I realized something quietly profound. For years, I had believed I was the problem, that I was too strict, too serious, too unwilling to let things go. But I wasn't. I was just the only one who had been expected to grow up. And my father, despite his absence, despite his mistakes, was the only one who had ever truly protected me. Not by shielding me from consequences, but by refusing to rob me of them. So now, I want to ask you the same question my father forced me to confront. Do you think he was too harsh? Do you believe he should have stepped in and saved his daughter again? Or do you believe that sometimes the most honest form of love is letting someone face the consequences they were taught to avoid? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I genuinely want to hear your perspective. And if this story resonated with you, if it made you uncomfortable, reflective, or seen, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it. Because sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones that save us.